Hello everyone, my name is Anaya Vidal Simmons. I'm from New Jersey, but I live in California. I go to Full Sail University, which is located in Florida, but it's an online course, so I'm still in California. On today's show, I'm going to talk about the evolution of horror films from the 1900s to the 2000s. In 1919, the movie known as the granddaddy of all horror films was released. That film was The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. And in 1922, the very first vampire movie was born, Nosferatu. Keep in mind, this was during the silent era, so filmmakers had to use creepy images to create fear in its audience. In the 1930s, horror films started to add sound, and with sound came monsters. These monsters were created through science, like in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. By adding screams, monsters that made growling noises, and adding music to build suspense to the film, it made it easier to scare the audience, which is a big part of the horror film genre. By the 1940s, humans were turning into monsters, and movies like The Wolfman. The monster was not the wolf through the whole film, only when he was transformed because a wolf bit him and he lived, causing him to become the Wolfman. In the 1950s, horror films became B movies. Studios were more into incorporating technology than focusing on making high quality horror films. These horror films usually involved huge animals and insects, and even aliens. With TV advertising, these films became blockbusters because it was able to reach out to other audiences, especially teenagers. Thrillers became very popular in the 1960s, with films like Psycho and The Birds, both directed by legendary Alfred Hitchcock. He was well known for his thrillers, taking horror films to a whole nother level. And in movies like Village of the Damned, it showed that even kids can be part of a thriller and can actually cause harm to other people. Having spooky kids in horror films carried over into the 70s, and movies like The Exorcist and The Omen. Not just any children, even siblings, like in Halloween. In the 70s, fear was also introduced in other things people love, such as swimming, like in the film Jaws, that added fear to the audience because it shows anything could happen at any time, even when you're having fun. By the 1980s, visual effects caught up with filmmaking, which made it possible to make more realistic effects for close-ups and added more gore to the movie. In movies like Wes Craven's 1984 film, A Nightmare on Elm Street, you can see how better visual effects can make a better horror
Whatever
film.
you do, don't fall asleep.
Serial killers and psychopaths became part of the 90s horror films, like in 1991's Silence of the Lambs and 1995's film Seven. In horror films, the monster or the killer does not always have to be seen. In the Final Destination films that debuted in the 2000s, the killer can be death itself. It shows that you can't cheat death and get away with it.
What if it was our time? What if we were not meant to get off that plane? What if there is a design that it's not finished? By walking on the plane.
In 2010, Paranormal Activity 2 was released, which in my opinion is the scariest one to date. It really scares me to death. Thanks for watching, and let's see what the horror genre has for us in the future.